Today, we're going to go over every single part of an AR-15. Okay guys, so on this table I have an AR-15. Every single component that you need to put it all together, but it is all in pieces. So I'm going to talk about every single part and what it does. I'm not going to go in super depth today on each individual part. I will be going into depth on that on individual videos over the course of the next who knows how long. So let's get into it. Okay, so first and foremost we have the main component that is serialized, which is the lower receiver. The lower receiver is the only part that you have to ship to your FFL, and this is what is considered the firearm legally. Okay, so let's go over the lower receiver components first. So obviously you have your grip. It's got a spring in there. That spring pushes up on the safety selector detent, which is this little brass dude, which goes into this track on the safety selector, which is what allows it to snap into place. After that, we have the buffer tube, which is just going to screw right into the back of there. Obviously, you're going to have this cap there, as well as your castle nut that screws in onto the back of your lower. Inside of your buffer tube, you're going to have your buffer spring, which is going to house your buffer. So that all goes in there like that, with that guy on there and that screws into there. And so when your bolt cycles, it actually pushes the whole buffer back into the buffer tube. So this buffer, it's going to go on the stock, and so this is a stock, so it just goes onto the stock, and then your stock has these 6 positions that it can adjust. If you're building an AR pistol, it's a little bit different, but that's pretty much the gist of that. Inside of here, obviously, you're going to have your trigger components. So you're going to have your hammer catch, you're going to have your trigger itself, and then you're going to have the hammer. And I didn't pull these out of the bag because I didn't want to lose them, and they came sealed in this bag, so I figured I'd leave them. You're also going to have a few springs in the trigger. So you're going to have your trigger spring, your hammer spring, and then the hammer catch spring. So each one of those components has their own spring. They all go together in one group. And then you're going to have these 2 pins that go into these little holes that hold your whole trigger assembly in place. Depending on the lower you get, you will have a trigger guard that's going to go right there. Some lowers have it built in and you don't have to worry about it. But there's also a roll pin that goes into there, and then this little screw that goes into there as well. Some of them have little spring thingies that allow it to pop open. A little bit different, but yeah. Also in your lower, you're going to have your magazine release, which are these components here. So this guy's going to go in right there. And then this button is going to go in here with the spring, and then you push on that and it releases your magazine. Also, that buffer, after it's in here, it will just slide forward. So there is your buffer catch, which is this guy that goes in here, and that holds your buffer in place. And then you're also in the last component of the lower that we haven't talked about yet is your bolt catch. So this guy is going to go right in here, and that's what's going to actually hold your bolt back after you fire last round. Your magazine comes into contact with the bolt catch and holds that open. So that's it for those. So when the whole lower is assembled, it looks something like this. So every single component that we mentioned, magazine catch, bolt catch. I forgot to mention these pins. Your takedown pins, your forward and rear takedown pins, those guys go right there, and that's what holds your upper onto the lower, and they can just be pushed out, which is super nice with their springs and respective detents. I have the buffer in there, obviously with the spring, your buffer catch, obviously the stock there. This one has one that you can actually hook on a sling or something like that, and then obviously the grip. You got your trigger guard there. So yeah, and that is everything for the lower and how everything works, and then obviously the trigger and safety selector. Okay, so now let's move on to the upper components. So the primary upper component is going to be the upper receiver as opposed to the lower receiver. So the upper receiver just sits onto the lower receiver right there. This upper receiver, it houses several things. So obviously you're going to have your this cover that covers your ejection port cover. Oh, geez, almost forgot what that was called. You're going to have your bolt that goes in here as well, and then you're going to have your charging handle that's going to pull your bolt back. You're also going to have the forward assist that helps you push the bolt forward in case it gets all dirty. Some roll pins as well that hold all those components into place. There's obviously a spring on there. And then in your upper as well, obviously a very important component is going to be your barrel. This is just a standard 16-inch barrel, 5.56. I left it in the packaging because it's sealed. It's obviously a threaded barrel, and then your gas block is going to sit right here. There's even the little gas port right there, and then a little detent on the other side of the barrel to help hold your gas block in place. There's always a pin at the top there that goes into that hole right there to make sure your barrel is oriented properly, help you line all that stuff up. With this, we have our gas tube that will go into the gas block, and I'll show you the gas block later. It actually goes like that. I got it backwards, right like that. And so after the bullet passes the gas port, gases flow back, push your bolt carrier back, and cycle in the next round. This is your gas block right here. Again, I left this one in the baggie too. So you got a little hole up there that's going to accept your roll pin, and then you have some screws on the bottom that go and press against the barrel to hold it in place into that little detent that I showed you as well. Okay, and then we have our hand guard. This hand guard is oftentimes there's a barrel nut separate of the hand guard. In fact, I've only assembled one upper before, and it had the barrel nut separate from the hand guard. This one has it integrated in the hand guard, which is a little bit interesting because you just have to torque them down pretty good. But it's just going to screw on to that. Obviously, you're going to put the barrel in first prior to screwing this all in, and then with all the gas system before you put that guy on. And that's going to go together like that. And then on the end of the barrel, you will have some sort of flash hider, muzzle brake. Oftentimes these guys are just referred to as a bird cage. These guys go on the end to help dissipate gases and reduce recoil just a hair, and muzzle flash and all that stuff. There are also several little clip doodads that hold on your ejection port cover. I haven't talked about every single itty-bitty spring that goes into detents, but other than that, this is the gist of every single component. I'll show you an assembled upper here. Okay, so this is what everything looks like. Like I mentioned, you got your charging handle there, ejection port cover, bolts obviously in there. We got the forward assist installed. There's a barrel nut in. This is the one I was talking about that I actually assembled. There's a barrel nut in there, hand guard. You can kind of see in there, there's the gas system. Up in there, your gas block, and then this one, instead of a bird cage, it's just a little interesting muzzle device there. Helps hide your flash. It's an air pistol. It honestly flashes quite a bit. And then that is an assembled upper. Okay guys, so this is every single component inside of an AR-15. Honestly, it kind of looks a little confusing to put one together on your own, but it is actually quite simple. I have a video on how to assemble the upper. The lower one got taken down by YouTube. So you can go find bits and pieces still on YouTube of one put up by Midway USA to put your lower together if you get that. But that's pretty much it.